Lemon 18th. We're going to be talking about how God frees his people today, and the doctrine being God being the only true living God out there. Okay? We have to focus on that. We have to understand that, and God proves that through his word in the passage that we're going to be dealing with here today. And God's people are saved through a substitute. You need to get that, and you'll find that out in the 10th plague, that God frees his people through a substitute. Now, there's been several times throughout this passage, this scripture that we're going to be going through, that Pharaoh would say, who is this Lord that I need to obey? See, he thought he was a God. He thought that he was in control of the situation. He thought, who do I need to answer to here? How many times have we seen that through our own society where maybe our friends are saying, who is God? I mean, that I need to answer to him? You say, maybe they wouldn't say that, but maybe that's the way that they live. Maybe that's the way that you live. In the sense that you say, who is God? I mean, what's he going to do to me? What's he going to do to me? And that's exactly what Pharaoh was saying. And as we deal with the concept of substitute, have you ever needed a substitute? Maybe in your food, in your in a sport, whatever. Maybe your teacher needed a substitute. They stepped in because they were sick, or maybe they were having a baby or something like that. I remember my senior year. I don't know if the coach just felt sorry for me or what, but he was playing me for almost the whole entire game for basketball, and usually I was sitting on the bench, But he's playing me quite a bit during our last game. It was a regional game. We knew that we were going to be done for. So I guess he says, well, what's the point? So he throws me out there. And finally I got to the point. I was winded. I didn't have much energy left. He just kept playing me. And I said, Coach, can you just give me a substitute? I mean, he was giving everybody else substitutes. I was thinking, hey, just take me out for a few minutes and then I'll jump back in. So he did, And I was relieved to know that somebody could step into my place. And I, had different times, like in college, where I've been injured and I needed somebody to step in, because if I didn't have somebody step in, then I could have caused someone to be able to score on our team. And I needed that substitute, that relief factor, in order for it to happen. Maybe some of you in eating, maybe you're gluten-free, and so you need a substitute. I used to work at this retirement community where every day the activities lady, she was trying different recipes out, and she would try them on me. She'd make these cookies, and they were gluten-free cookies because she wanted to start her own bakery. And they're gluten-free cookies. She says, oh, this is supposed to taste like an Almond Joy. Does it taste like an Almond Joy? And I get to eat them. Now, I was pretty happy because she did a really good job. I mean, most gluten-free stuff that I've tasted is... But this one, man, it was good. And she talked about how she used applesauce to substitute for like sugar or something. I didn't understand it all, but she did a good job. I would buy those cookies at the bakery that she owned. I mean, it'd be great. But you know what? The people needed a substitute in this. And you say, where are we getting that from? Well, let's go over to Exodus chapter 7 and verse 14. And so you go there, and it says, and the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuses to let the people go. What happened? Well, Moses and Aaron shows up. They show the people the different signs. They showed Pharaoh some signs, and Pharaoh questions who God is, and he's not willing to let the people go. So it says in verse 15, get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning, lo, and he goeth out into the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's brink, against he come, and the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thine hand, and thou shalt say unto him, the Lord God of the Hebrews has sent me unto thee, saying, let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness, and behold, hitherto thou wouldst not hear. Thus saith the Lord, in this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall love to drink the water of the river. And see, See, this is an important factor, and Moses does it. The first plague is that he turns the Nile into blood. And you know, this is a pretty important aspect of the Egyptian society. They needed that for water, for bathing, for cooking, whatever it might be. I mean, this was very, very important to the Egyptian society, and it was turned into blood. I mean, fish are dying. I mean, so many issues here. They can't drink it. And so God is showing himself mighty. He's, if you want to say, he's flexing his muscles in front of Pharaoh, saying, okay, you know, after Pharaoh says, who is this God? God says, I am God, you know. And so he jumps in and he does this, he flexes his muscles. But you know, it's not just against Pharaoh who's being utterly stubborn. He's actually flexing his muscles, proving that each one of these plagues that he gives is actually against one of the false gods that the Egyptians worshipped. Because they worshipped all kinds of false gods. I mean, they had river gods and just all these animals. I mean, if you've ever seen it through their different paintings on the walls, or what do they call those, hieroglyphs or something? I can't remember. But anyway, all their animals, or their false gods, had animal heads, like cat head and an alligator head and all these different things. And so yet God here is proving that these false gods they're worshiping are nothing. They are fake news. All right? And so this is where God's showing up. He's judging the Egyptians, the Pharaoh, and their false gods. Okay? Let me ask you this. What are some of the false gods in our own society? What are some of the false gods in your own life? What are the false gods in my life? And we often talk about the coronavirus, right? I mean, you probably hear it all the time. Do you think God's flexing his muscles right now to prove that all the things that we hold high and mighty aren't what satisfies? Maybe he's emptying our lives right now so that we'll actually catch on to the things we actually need. What about in your own life? What became a god to you, and as you tried to kick God out of your own life? There's a lot here. And you know, God says it. He even said in verse 17 that we read in chapter 7, you will know that I am the Lord. One of the biggest fears is the fact that nobody can control this except for God. People want to control everything. They want to think that they are God. And yet they aren't. So what are some of the idols that you need to be confronted on? Some of the other plagues was boils, gnats, flies, frogs, hail, darkness, all kinds of them. And it was just horrific. Plants died, animals died, people died, and all of a sudden we get to this last plague. And Pharaoh, he gave in a few times, and then he pulled back, and he says, I'll let you go. And then he says, no, you're not going anywhere. He tried to change the stipulations on the agreement, and God, nope, this is going to happen my way, the way I want it, when I want it. You go on to Exodus chapter 12, verses 3 through 8, and it says there, speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, spotless. A male of the first year, ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the 2 side posts and on the upper door posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. And you go down to verse 12 and 13, it says, For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are, and when I see the blood I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And so we see here in this passage where God is going to bring this plague that is going to be, it's going to be a plague where the firstborn is going to die unless you sacrifice a spotless lamb. Unless you sacrifice a spotless lamb and put the blood over the doorposts, you will lose your firstborn if you don't do what God states. And guess what? It happened. And there was a warning, so don't say that there wasn't a warning to Pharaoh and his people, and they could have followed through, but they didn't. And so at midnight, can you imagine the cries out in the land when all of those people died? All the firstborn. You know, I wonder, what warnings do we not listen to what God says? Warnings about the consequences of our sin, warnings about hell, warnings about so many things, and we just cast it off and we don't pay attention. Spotless lamb, what does that mean? Wasn't there a spotless lamb that came, died, the ultimate sacrifice, so that God's wrath would pass over us? It's called Jesus, his own son, sacrificed for us. The blood on the door was a public statement to all those that are around him. I wonder how public we are with our own Christianity. You see God's judgment and you see his grace. Exodus chapter 12, verse 29 through 32, it says, And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, and to the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. Every single house affected. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go and serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone and bless me also. He wanted them out. God sets his people free. But there needed to be a substitution, that lamb that was sacrificed for the sake of the family, the sake of the firstborn. Interesting factor. What warnings do we not heed by God? What idols do we put in the way of God? What things do we need to be confronted on right now? How public do we need to be about our statement of our faith? Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you're challenged. We'll talk to you later, teens.